It's totally imperative that we turn around this paradigm and we start having respect for this plant so that the plant can go out and educate the masses so that this world can be a better place. The exact plant.
Okay. Could you mention something when you say you test something, just a little detail about that?
Well, when we're usually testing soil, we're testing for microbial counts. We're testing for different colonization of fungi, all different types of microbes in there,
There's
as
lots
well
of different
as
soil tests.
You're sending a sample somewhere, or you're doing?
Absolutely.
Yes, we're sending a sample someplace. We feel like there's experts in the field of soil testing. It's not expensive testing. It's really easy to do. And then when we talk about testing for cannabis in the flowers, we're talking about cannabinoid counts and terpene counts.
And microbial
and
counts, which is
microbial
the
counts.
biggest thing in the world, because they're talking about 10,000 CFU colony counts on your flowers, which is like it's hard as hell. I mean, it sucks right now in Canada because they're putting out this 10,000 CFU thing for microbials, but microbials are not differentiated between beneficial and non-beneficial. Bacillus is one, but a lot of times it could even be fungal, and it could be trichoderma.
Right, and we're finding out that even the tiniest drop of trichoderma could fail a microbial test, but trichoderma is found in healthy soil in massive amounts. It makes up like a weight of 10% of the soil is just alone from trichoderma. So the tests are not smart enough right now. They're just testing for anything. You know, if a lactic acid bacteria culture is landing on your flower, it could fail microbials because they can't differentiate beneficials from pathogens.
You can't spray anything in the flower cycle.
No.
You really can't. You have to
No.
rely 100% on predator mites. It's just the way it is.
And how are we doing on
you
time?
can't even breathe on the plant when you're done.
I think you were talking about planting plants in beds.
The people in Nevada can
Just a
tell
second.
whether they're breathing on the plant or not with their.
I have
They use
trouble
masks.
with my full
I'm totally
season
fucking
crops.
serious. It's crazy.
When I plant them in my beds, which I have like Google style beds, I plant a full season crop in that bed, they don't finish. If I plant them in a pot, they do finish. And I've always had the theory in my mind, it's just because they're less happy in the pot, so they want to finish faster.
Yeah, they're less happy in the pot, and they're also going to have less cannabinoids and less juice to them. They're going to have less health and well-being to them overall,
Right, so
even
the
though they're going to
problem is
finish.
just strains and-
It's strain
because I'm too
dependent.
lazy to like them, so I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah, so pots do help for that, but really when the testing part starts coming on, are you going to have a higher quality product? The answer is no.
Yes.
Sorry, but did you just say don't use natural mystic in flowering?
Seriously.
Definitely. Well, if you're going to be getting
Absolutely.
microbial tested, and your flowers are going to be getting microbial tested, we definitely encourage people to stop any kind of sprays 3 weeks in. But if you're not getting microbial tests, you know that that's a healthy product that you can spray on your plant to keep your flowers good all the way until the
So
end.
as far as you guys are concerned, that product's quality as long as you're not getting tested.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, we need to be able to smoke dust. We need to be able to have like beneficials. There is no example of any food in any of our stores that pass these tests.
No.
We're breathing in more pathogens than they're allowing. This is a total strangle move
Yeah.
done by the powers that be. This
Because
has
you can
nothing to do with
irradiate.
reality.
So these really large LPs are going to be irradiating their flowers.
No, I know all
So
about that, but
yeah.
who do we have at those levels that are advocating for people like us?
well, we're advocating.
We are in touch with people that are advocating, and we encourage everyone to advocate about it. And there's probiotic ganja and probiotic weed, and there are places, and Andrew was just saying in Washington they are differentiating
5
it.
states now are differentiating it now. What they decide to do is they're just testing for the known pathogens that they don't want in weed, and the other bacteria or whatever it's on there.
So it's a matter of time.
And the reason why
It's
that's a
another
problem is because you have to grow it out longer. The reason why they don't do that is because you can grow it for a week and say, molds, see you later. But you have to take those molds out and regrow them longer, and labs are just like, I don't
And
have the space for
differentiate the
that.
species. And then that just sort of, I lost my train of thought. Are there any more questions? Anyone?
You guys come across
Okay.
any indigenous non-beneficial fungus with your wild crafting and bringing stuff into your property? Like, is there anything you found that you could really avoid that
You want to definitely,
Anthracnose.
yeah, you definitely want to bring in
Stuff like
healthy
that.
plants. If you're going to be wild crafting or if you're going to be creating your
Rust.
own biomass, you definitely want to be only putting into your bins what's healthy and what is the best, plant. I think that we have 20 minutes right now, and since there aren't any questions, I think that we're going to delve into integrated pest and fungal management program, because I feel like that's something that is really dear to everybody here in the cannabis industry right now. And I feel like because we've been in the black market, we've allowed our grow stores to be our educators, and they're very product orientated and they're very product centric, and we really need to move away from the idea that we can just spray something on our plants and then all of a sudden they're healthy. Yeah.
Just before you move on to that, so I had this one question. So when you break virgin soil in the bush, all right, that soil usually is so rich in microbial and fungal content, we don't even understand. We're usually quite ignorant to it. We're just like, break it up, and so quite often in the first year or two you see the benefits of that. But then immediately it starts depleting depending on what you're using. Right?
Exactly why you have to continue.
So my question is can you capture that? So you guys are showing us these teas. Can you actually go into the bush and grab like a couple of inches
Yes.
layer and just bring it
put
back?
it right into your
and throw it
soil.
in?
That was the only thing that we actually did. We weren't able to
Yes.
bring in any nutrients. Our hike was 7 hours, for us out in the bush. So the only thing that we could bring is our food and our kid, and a big barrel. And we rotted nettles in those barrels, and we put them all along the hillside, and we just, had water constantly running through all of those ferments. And the idea of just the first 2 years are going to give you what you want, but if you're not putting back to the soil, then you're just going to continue to deplete the soil. Even if you just took all of those plant leaves and just dropped them on the ground right where they were, at least you would be doing something. But we're growing something out of these crops, and then we're taking them out of the area that we grew them from. So really all of the nutrients are in those plants, and in the natural cycles of life, all of those leaves drop to the ground, so then the soil can be replenished. So yeah, it's really easy to utilize all different kinds of stuff in the bush to be able to ferment and either lay on top of your beds to compost over a long period of time, which works out great too, or ferment for more of a faster nutrient
This is
feeding.
lactic acid bacteria right here, this milk, that milk substance.
And it's really easy to make. Lactic acid bacteria culture is easy to make. We have recipes. If you all reach out to us, we can send them to you. All of the education that we do is free. We're open book sourced for everything that we do. We're an open book source for even our Pure certification. We feel like community minded is really, being in reverence to the plant. We've all, probably many of us here in this room, have gotten so much from the plant. It's given us, our livelihood, and now it is time. It is an imperative time to give back to this plant. This is medicine that is going to bring us up. It gives us something when we ingest it. It's a basic nutrient. It's giving us a higher intelligence so that we can move forward into our next generation. What can we give our next generation any more than healthy, beautiful soil? That is the real gold, is healthy, beautiful soil for our next generations. Not money in the bank, not a car, not all these setups, but healthy soil. So it really should be always in the forefront of our minds of how can we make our soil better, because our soil is giving us life. And the plant is reactive to that soil.
And Oregon has produced 900,000 pounds of weed in 1 year. Metric measurement, if you look it up, and up to 1 million at one point, and they said they could only sell 250,000 pounds. That's what they estimated. California, you have distribution networks that can sell your weed, that have to sell your weed for you. So if you're a farmer, you have to use a distribution company in order to sell your weed, and then you may totally get forgotten in that process. You might grow the weed, you give it to the distribution company, no one even knows you exist anymore. People are selling their farms right now. Like, the whole rage of making $1 million is not a real thing. It's all just made up for stocks and shares, and get it while it's going good, get it while it's hot. And meanwhile, they're changing our system into something we absolutely don't recognize. We don't recognize these systems. We can't. people in Oregon that have recreational farms, it's not even their farm anymore. Everyone has to sign in when they get there. They have cameras all over their gardens, and you have to sign in every time you get there. And you can't smoke weed in your garden.
So yeah, which is crazy. Yeah, that's the worst part of it all. So integrated pest and fungal management program is that we really want to have total respect for the plant. So this idea of like, oh, we're going to spray all of these things on the plant and the plant is going to be okay with it. Well, the plant isn't okay with it. And I know a lot of people are noticing that within their clones. You know, we keep trying to clone, we have these mother plants and then we keep spraying her with things. And I don't know how you guys feel, but I don't really like all of my skin covered in oils and weird stuff. And even if it's OMRI certified, it doesn't mean anything. Even if it's organic certified, so knowing the inputs of what you're utilizing is really important. The other thing that we've really recognized is the tremendous power of heat treatment. So, you know, a lot of these light exoskeleton bugs that are infesting our gardens right now, which is like broad mites, russet mites, and now aphids. We're having cannabis aphids. It's a new thing. And also
Not root
the
aphids,
root aphids.
plant aphids.
This is different. And also root aphids, we're recognizing that if we bring it up to 50 degrees Celsius inside of our greenhouses in the middle of the day, we're killing almost all pathogens, but all of the beneficials are still there. The smaller beneficials like the predator mites, they're not going to survive that. So we're utilizing heat treatment and it is working tremendously. So 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 50 degrees Celsius, and you heat up your rooms, but just like when you go into a sauna, you bring your water with you, you bring your teas with you, you bring everything that you need, and you want to be able to set your plants up with that as well. So you're feeding them these beautiful teas and you're soaking all of their roots. And about after 2 to 3 hours, you're really noticing that that plant is uptaking everything and all of the pathogens are falling off of it. This is a really good, wonderful, healthy way that we can keep our gardens clean without continuously spraying. The only foliar sprays that we should be using are nutritive sprays for the plants, like the Natural Mystic, or like lactic acid, or a compost tea. We want to only be utilizing foliar in a nutritive way, not in a way that's stripping the plant, because you're really losing yield, you're losing your quality the more that you are spraying. One thing is that I wanted to talk about broad mites for a minute. Broad mites can't be seen on a plant except by 100 times, 60 to 100 times magnification. And if you're seeing the adults, then you've already lost the battle. So the eggs are really easy to see, but people are
you can't
really
just use the regular handheld version. You really have to get a microscope
Even
or one that
200
gets.
is better.
Yeah.
And if you can get it on your computer and save some pictures and some video that you can share with some friends and family to help you diagnose, that's even better.
And we're realizing that when we're going into people's gardens, just geez, what's going on? And really, I would say 99% of the time, it's broad mites. And if we can just recognize that this is what is happening in our gardens, we're not so worried about, oh, where did I get them? Oh, who gave them to me?
If you have cannabis, you're
got
gonna
them.
have them. It's
If
not
you
what
have-
it used to be.
Yeah, and we're seeing broad mites on a lot of things in regular world. I went through the broad mite brain all the way down the wormhole of the broad mite, and we're realizing that they were being spread out on the highways, several years ago for different types of
Vegetation control, where they
control.
didn't feel like they could bring people out to mow it down. They just set out a bunch of broad mites to kill the vegetation. And broad mites are so small, they can fly on flies. They can just fly through. They just land. A regular housefly could have like 15 of those things on it.
And then when you call the departments that put out these, the Department of Transportation, and you say, hey, what are you guys doing? And they're like, well, here's all of, if you have farms, here's all the recommendations that we give you. Well, those recommendations are all toxic. And if you say, well, hey, I have an organic farm, they basically say we can't help you. So we need to be smarter. And that's why our integrated pest and fungal management programs need to be smarter. The other thing that we noticed is that with leaf mildew, it is very temperature dependent. If you heat up your room to 120, you're also going to be able to be getting rid of a lot of the pathogens on your leaves as well. And then you come in afterward and then you spray it with a nice foliar that's giving a nice nutrition to your plants.
Are there times in flowers, say, that you would not recommend that? Like, is
Nope.
that something you can do that right?
You can do
through?
heat treatment all the way up
I did
until
it week
next
6,
day.
Not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
In fact,
There
we
is a
watch
thing
plants.
to volatility and terpenes, so you know.
No, 120 is fine with it. Yeah, yeah.
For how long?
Well, you'll want to stay inside your room or your greenhouse, but 3 to 4 hours is really optimal. And 120 degrees, the plants just thrive in that. They're like, yay, I'm finally in the area that with which I grew from, Africa or wherever, you know, South America. I love this, you know. Play them tropical music.
Just
But make
migrate
sure.
the plants first.
We were
Yeah.
watching Sky doing some mountain bike racing this summer, and we're up at the top of the mountains, and we're just like, oh my god, all of the fireweeds covered in aphids. Like, why are all the top of the fireweeds black? You know, oh shit. And then we went home, and then the whole entire sky's covered with bugs flying around. If you jog your memory, you'll remember. And then next thing you know, there's like aphids crawling around and everything.
This year was the worst.
This is a terrible year, and a terrible year
Next
for
year is gonna
food
be more
farmers
worse.
as well.
Yeah.
So
We have to get smarter.
you know, we the heat treatment was absolutely
Yeah.
useful.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Kangen water. We haven't had really any success with it. We've done a whole lot of treatments, and really, we feel like we've really taken on integrated pest management and like really looked at all of the different species and different things and how they react. We're looking at a microscope. We're spraying all these different things on it, how they react. We also find out if you spray hydrogen peroxide on broad mites, well, that oxygen molecule only gives them really excited to breed even faster. So, you know, there's a lot of things that we're adding that just really don't work, and we're realizing that any kind of foliar spray that's used for pest management only, not for if you have clean plants. It's wonderful to take rosemary and lavender, or our product Natural Mystic. It has all of these things in it. You can make a tea out of it, and you can spray it on your plants, and it will act as like a safeguard that the insects are not really, that the pathogens are not interested in it. But when you're already infected, we've really found nothing to work other than heat treatment. And really and truly, that has been our
Along
ace in
with
the
predator
hole.
mites afterwards, or
Yeah,
washes.
and then adding predators
I have to
after
say
the
4
heat
times
treatments.
the recommended amount sure works.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
But it's
More
a
is
lot of
better.
money, yeah.
More is better. And if for broad mites, Kookameris and Swirsky together.
Yeah.
That's what we say. Just people say like, oh, you can maybe just get Kookameris or just Swirsky, but the two of them together work really good.
Now with that information, and you're going to build a field, it sounds like this, you know, recessed greenhouse, or with some frame at least over top that you can
Cover
actually,
easy.
cover it and create that environment of 50 degrees Celsius
Mhm.
for 3 to 4 hours. So it's not just a flat field any kind more with that kind of possibility.
Mhm.
Well, we're finding that you know, more pests are interested in these exotic strains that we keep bringing in that are really not meant to grow here at all. So we're forcing something that really shouldn't be grown here at all, but the market is also, that's what they're craving. So we need to stay in the market. So how is it that we can do it? By growing these really important, not important strains, but popular strains, and still stay in the market, and heat treatment seems to be our best bet that we've had so far. If you're growing outdoor strains, you're really not having so many pest problems because those outdoor strains are already acclimated to this area.
intelligence around them.
Yeah, and they have a biological intelligence.
Diversity around them.
And then that gets into closed loops. So one of the most important closed loops that we can all have as farmers is to breed our own strains, because then your strain becomes biologically intelligent to your own biome, your own area, your own soil. It knows that really, really well, and it understands that. So getting cuttings and clones, all you're doing is bringing in more pathogens. It's an outside loop that really isn't serving us. And also, we're recognizing that these farms that are doing really well in California, doing really well in Oregon, are ones that have their special strains. They have something that's really awesome.
This is our Zelly's gift right before we cloned it in 2014 and got it out to the community. We cloned it on the day we harvested it because it was just so phenomenal. And we've brought a lot of strains into the area, and they do really well. And we've also created a lot of seeds and given them all over, you know, the U.S. And people are just like, whoa, there's so much power in the seed. They just grew so much stronger and stuff. So there's like a lot of reasons to grow intelligently and biologically as well.
Mhm, and
Just cycle the heat treatments the same way you would with a spray for mites. You have to spray for the eggs when they hatch. Do you do the heat
Yeah.
cycle like the same way?
yeah, well, we're recognizing that mites have a 3-day cycle, and they can become totally immune within 6 generations, and 6 generation only takes 9 days for this certain species. So, we're spraying all of these toxins on it, and they become completely immune to them because they're way more smart than we are. So if you're totally infested and you already have a problem, you want to do heat treatment every 3 days, 3 times. You want to wash down all of your plants, and then you want to bring in your predators.
Yeah,
and that's almost a
That's what
full
we did.
treatment. It works, and it's foolproof. And then if you have more problems, you're not having an infestation of problems. You're having a problem of like, oh, I've got a small little problem here. I know exactly how to take care of it because I'm looking within nature to take care of the
And
problem.
you
I'm
have predator
thinking like
mites
the mite.
in your clone room. You have predator mites in your little vegetation room. You have predator mites on your earring, and you hang out with them. You're never worried about giving your friend a hug at the grocery store or at the whatever because they're covered in predator mites. We're covered in predator mites, so now we can happily go and infect people with good things. So we really believe in it, and it frees up a lot of time because it sucks having to spray all the time, and there's a level of panic to it. And it's scary sometimes to go in the room. You're just like, and then you have to go, and then you just don't want to give your plants that energy. You want to give your plants just the love energy so they can just be in that vital state so they can create trichomes and beautiful resins that melt.
You said that you don't bring anything into your farm, but do you make your own predator mites?
No, we do bring
We
in
do.
predator mites. We bring them in twice a year for prevention now. Just to make sure that everything's all clean. We utilize Cooper. They're a wonderful group of people. They're over in
Do
Holland.
not use
It's-
Syngenta.
No, be very careful where you're getting your bugs from.
Because they're GMO.
Cooper is a non-GMO bug.
KOPPERT.
You don't have to get into how to make it, but are you guys using a lot of biochar or making it? Or?
Oh, well, that was one of the pictures that
Biochar
we-
is a really wonderful thing to use. It's like wood chips. You don't want to use too much of it in your soil because like charcoal in your stomach, it can stop you up. It can kind of stop up your soils too. So it's really the beautiful thing to have in there. Why not have some burnt carbon in there for the...
Are you inoculating it before you put it in your
I totally get the whole, like, you have to charge your biochar for it to be like biochar and stuff, but no. We put it in the soil and let the soil, the soil charge it up.
Your soils are pretty charged.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
and it's really important.
We want
like,
our soils to charge it.
to keep that closed loop mentality. It's like if you've got one closed loop, which is reusing your soil, well, that's awesome. And then you want to have another closed loop, which is reutilizing your leaves. Another one is to reutilize your stalks. You can go on, and then these closed loops start to become addictive, and you realize the more closed loops that you have, the healthier that your gardens are, and the higher quality product that you're bringing out. You can get a wonderful biochar actually from these great wood stoves that we have. So every bit of our wood stove all winter is getting cleaned out into buckets that we then put into our nursery
Or maybe we
soil.
take a little bit out each time, save it and stuff. But a
There it is right there.
charged biochar would make a lot of sense in a soilless medium
Yeah.
because you have nothing else but charged biochar.
But it's not
But
enough.
if your whole entire soil system is totally alive, doesn't matter.
Yeah, and moving away from peat, moving away from perlite, all of these things that really don't host beneficial colonization over a long period of time. It can be a part of a medium of your soil, but we know that peat is really a renewable resource. And we know that we can just make great soil
And
right
if
in our
we use it, we have
backyards
to
and
use it
bring it
forever.
inside. And then I touched a little bit on what clean is. We were talking a bit about how hospitals are unclean. Well, cleanliness comes in the way of microbiology, so that that if you're having some kind of a pathogen in your garden, you're just like, no worries, my beneficials got it. I don't even need to have a sleepless night over this because I know that my beneficials have this. We make sprays, intelligent sprays out of, like, if we have something in the garden that's really, really thriving, we'll take those leaves from that plant and then we will inoculate all of the plants in our garden because we know that that particular plant is calling out the beneficial cyanomicrobiology onto the leaves, so why not bigger it in a vat and then foliar spray it everywhere? It's just thinking more along the lines of let's stop feeding our plants, let's let the soil feed our plants. Any more questions? I think we're pretty much wrapped up, yeah.
So say you have a reservoir and you've got an organic
Mhm.
fertilizer and you got bubblers, and I make tea bags with your products.
Right.
And so I just let them sit in there and bubble. But so can you add lactic acid to a reservoir that's got an organic, basically you're making tea
Yeah.
Yeah,
with your products?
And I
absolutely.
would
Would that
suggest
supercharge
not having a tea bag as well. I would
Yeah.
suggest.
not having
And
to
let
like-
the material that's floating around in there go onto the top of the soil. If you can get it in there and let it sit on the top of the soil,
Yeah.
it becomes continuous to stay food.
Because
And
what
then
we're doing is
That's
we're
a technical problem for, but yeah.
Totally,
Or
and then
at
there's a
least-
lot of irrigation issues there and stuff like that, but it's a good thing.
I think we're starting
Maybe
to
just take the
outsmart
bag.
ourselves.
No, just take the bag and
Yeah.
just liquefy it and just spread it out.
No, I understand. But
Yeah.
what my question is, lactic acid would work in that application?
Absolutely.
Yes, it's an acidic, so you just have to be careful of your pH. So just watch your pH.
It's
but
gonna help,
absolutely, it's gonna help with
release.
the
And then
breakdown.
that picture right there, are those Paul Stamets little,
These are.
Yeah,
These
they
are fungi
actually are.
perfecti, reishi plugs, and those are the ones that we use to.
And we
grow.
bury them underneath all of our soils in our cannabis gardens and all of our gardens, and then we get double
Yeah.
the product.
So like you have.
Mushrooms are adaptogenic, so is cannabis. Let's bring them together, and I think that we can create a higher intelligence.
Yeah, they're birch plugs that are being eaten by reishi, and you just get a fresh log, and you can line the top of your whole bed with logs and cover it with dirt. So actually you don't see the logs, but they're totally being they're wet. They're staying wet, and then they just pop up. Lion's mane is another one you can do that with, which is sweet because that's a nootropic medicine which builds, regenerates cells and improves your cognitive function. Lion's mane, grow it.
Anything else?
are those sold in Canada?
You can buy them.
Yep.
You can buy them, and
Yeah.
they can send them to Canada.
And you can grow them out bigger. So if you get a small amount, you can grow them out bigger with your own.
Just buy a few bags and go buy some wood chips and stick them inside and just let them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mountain alder is a really good
Exactly.
species around here.
Awesome.
Cottonwood.
All our birches are dying too, so they're.
Yes, they are.
Could you guys touch on manure a little bit? Local.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be really careful because unfortunately, it's a specific test for glyphosate. Glyphosate is a massive problem for living soils because what we're doing is we're buying products and possible manures, and over time, glyphosate on soils is killing our healthy microbiology and only thriving our pathogens. So it's absolutely imperative that if you're going to be getting manures, that you know exactly what they're feeding. If they're feeding their horses or their cows or their goats any kind of grain that's not organic, you're having glyphosate issues. And glyphosate is going to
goes
come out
through the
really
animal.
high.
It goes through the animal and stays in the poop, and it continues to live. And it's
So-
not just glyphosate.
So manure is fantastic. If it's a healthy, awesome manure, it's a wonderful way. Basically, what we're creating in these, big tea vats is just like a stomach of an animal, or just like our own stomach, so that it digests it fast and you know what's going in there. We've always really stayed away from putting like a lot of compost into compost teas because we don't really know what's going on in there, which is why we choose leaf material, because we can see that that's a really healthy leaf and we know exactly what's going into our ferments. Yeah.
Touching similar subject, but I've always wanted to know like what your thoughts were, because I know you do a lot of vegetonic stuff, but fish hydrolysate every once in a while, is that something, you know, what are your thoughts? Both, does it work, and also how do you feel of it overall?
Well, it sort of
It works.
It works.
Yeah.
It's getting back to that same sort of product-centric ideology. Like
Yeah.
the fish we know are containing massive amounts of active isotopes of nuclear waste.
Or mercury.
It depends on where your
mercury.
fish come from, especially with also crustacean meal and shrimp meal. We're
Yeah.
very careful with.
Yeah, 'cause the
Also,
chitin's good, but-
phosphoric acid is usually anything liquefied has to be stabilized.
Okay.
If it's not stabilized, it's going to continue to grow in the bottle and it's going to blow up in the grow store.
Yeah.
And you're really losing so much of that
So
because
what
you
are
don't
the
have the
isotope?
microbiology to
I would make
to hold
lactic
it.
acid bacteria, go catch fish, and ferment my own fish, and you make
It
my
goes
own
so far.
fermented hydrolysate, which we do all the time, and it's really
No, it doesn't
easy.
smell at all.
No, the
It's
thing is, with the
incredible.
lactic acid, I took a
Stops the
full
smell.
fish
Yeah.
and put
Many.
it into a 5-gallon bucket in my grow room,
Okay.
Not one smell.
Yeah.
Totally dissolved completely. And I could take that body and just go like this in the water. It was absolutely phenomenal.
And
So
there's
like-
some fishermen that we all know, so just get their guts.
I
you
like
know?
to say a few things about manure. Making a manure pile, traditionally composting manure is not necessarily the best for the environment because you're making it hot, which is great because people talk about, oh, it gets rid of the seeds, but we want the seeds. And when we buy hay, we want hay with seeds in it. I don't understand not wanting seeds in my hay. So, for example, the piles, if they're heated up, they can put carbon up into the air, and it's actually not the greatest thing for the environment. However, if you want to move away from peat and you want to move away from cocoa, you can do a really sweet a manure compost pile with hay in a windrow on your land or on someone's land, and you can make a really awesome medium. Mushroom growers do it all the time. They do it outdoors and they put it indoors in a mushroom environment and they grow mushrooms on it.
And we look at the biology of a thermophilic compost as opposed to a cold compost, and we pretty much let go of thermophilic composting because there's just no life in it. After you can build life, it's a great medium, but you're really losing it. So it's so awesome to create all of these compost piles all over your property, let them set for a year. Those cold compost piles are absolutely teeming with microbiology. It's awesome.
And so the beds become the compost pile.
So I just want to note that you're not only coming up with a solution for the potential of this for growers, but we're also facing peak phosphorus way faster.
This is a huge reason why we're doing this.
This is one of the biggest reasons why we're doing
We're
it.
proving you can grow huge, amazing plants with none of that stuff. No soft rock phosphate, no bone meal, zero blood meal, none of the potash that takes 2,000 degrees in a super dusty environment, which gives you lung cancer over in Saskatchewan. We don't use it.
No, and it's just the idea that we've just gone down the wrong roads of education. We need to start educating to empower ourselves in our own farms and our own communities. And we need to also join together. The peer certification that we created is joining together so that dispensaries understand what pure certified means, so that they can then go out and educate their consumers. And when they're educating their consumers, people are always going to choose the healthier weed over the other stuff because it's the same price at the dispensaries, and it's so much better. And the farmer that's doing regenerative cannabis is getting a higher price for it because he's more interested in the quality rather than the quantity.
We have gotten really good prices this year for our weed that we grew in our greenhouse. It's all gone. It's amazing. You can do it too. And we really, really want to use our store. We can be the headiest grower in the world, but without a dispensary or some kind of processor, it's meaningless. We have got to inspire people to open up dispensaries and medical dispensaries and do processing. There's plenty of weed out there.
Are those going to be even available
What?
in the coming market? I'm just curious.
What?
What the dispensaries are going to be available? Or are we
Something's
going
going to be available, and we have to find it, and we got to tell our
liquor
story.
boards soon, like-
There's crazy stuff that's right now it's happening. It's not going to be happening next year. So we just have to continue with our integrity and can use our integrity to inspire the consumer, inspire reality. We're inspiring reality. Us as a group, all of us. We can be like, oh, we're just meaningless things watching the news and everything's happening to us, or we can make the difference. And so we're seeing dispensaries like Soulful and Sebastopol down in California. Eli, amazing person. He's taking all these farms and he's bringing them into his dispensary. They're telling their stories. They're meeting all the people that come in. They're talking to the bud tenders.
Most successful
They're not
dispensary in
They're not just
California.
talking to the owners. They're talking to the bud tenders, and they're talking to the people that sell the weed, because without the people that sells the weed that knows what they're talking about, it's once again meaningless. You have to be able to, when people walk into a store and they see a giant shelf full of weed, but they see one that says pure certified and it has this whole story and this little card that says regenerative cannabis, and you walk in there and you're like, oh, what's regenerative cannabis? And they're like, oh, well, this is something that's grown totally in harmony with nature, thinking about energy and the inputs and something that's going in. Oh, cool. So then what is all of this? Oh, this is not grown like that. This is grown with chemicals because they're scared and they want to have a really big harvest so that they can have shares in the stock market when they're done. And that's the generalization. I took that to the extra level on that.
Well, and one thing I wanted to say too, and it's sort of like something that we're noticing in the cannabis industry, that the cannabis industry is moving faster than the plant can grow. This is a very dangerous position for us all to be in the cannabis industry. We all need to slow it down and think proper thoughts and have rightful way with this plant. The flowers that you are growing are being ingested by people, and those flowers are affecting the person's day and possibly even their entire life. It's totally imperative that we turn around this paradigm and we start having respect for this plant so that the plant can go out and educate the masses so that this world can be a better place.
Cool.